Welcome to the first real episode of the Unpolished Vote. Once again, my name's Cash.
And my name's Connie.
And today we are going to be discussing the
Allegations of fraud within Minnesota.
Allegations, yes,
Okay.
exactly.
To get into it, I think we should start with why there is such a big number of Somalians within Minnesota. So, in 1960, Somalia became a democratic nation, and then in 1969, there was a general named Mohammed Said Bear, which led a military coup, forcing them into economic and social struggles, including famine. Eventually, the resistance movement forced Bear out of power in 1991. Following the transfer of authority, a power struggle began, starting a civil war within the country. About 30-ish years after, the African Union and United Nations took control over Somalia, and by 2012, it began democratic elections. To move back to 1992, 1.5 million people from Somalia were displaced, and a large number sought asylum in the United States. While pinpointing the exact number of Somalians inside of Minnesota is quite difficult, there's about 100,000 per recent census estimates. That puts them around 1.859% of the total population of Minnesota. The reason why many Somalians fleeing the Civil War chose to relocate within Minnesota was because of the need for essential jobs and the way that Minnesota had established refugee settlements, and most importantly, most found suitable Little Meshuggah.
Which we will touch on later.
Yeah.
But I think we should just start by discussing some of the verified sources that we have found. I think this all comes from the IRS and the Department of Justice. So some things that have been verified are there are definitely ongoing fraud investigations in Minnesota involving government programs. Some defendants in these cases are Somali American. And the viral videos alleging specific Somali daycare center fraud have not been confirmed by official audits or inspectors.
Yeah. Basically, fraud is nothing new in Minnesota. This has been going on since 2019, but only now because of how popular it has become, I guess, or how routine it has become, it has got traction. So in 2019, a state investigation uncovered at least a dozen Minnesotans taking about several $1 million in childcare, where they billed for children that were not present in their childcare facilities, which is fraud. The outcome of this was the creation of Department of Children, Youth, and Families to oversee the auditing of childcare facilities. A vital thing to understand is that Minnesota is not exclusive to fraud. It is everywhere.
And I think it's become so popularized in Minnesota, and there's such a public overview of it now because of a man named Nick Shirley. Isn't that a fun name to say?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like Nick Shirley, like Shirley Temple type shit.
Yeah, okay. He released a photo in 2025 on December 26th.
A photo?
A video. So, basically, Nick Shirley released a video on December 26th of 2025 going around, I guess, Minnesota and cities within, more specifically, Little Meshuggah, and approaching childcare facilities, trying to uncover fraud. His estimates put fraud at the childcare fraud at, I think it was $8 billion. $8 billion.
$8 to $19 billion.
$8 to $19 billion. This soon gained attention from President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Attorney General Pam Bondi. All of this was pausing all federal funding to childcare facilities within Minnesota and only gaining federal funding back once they have, and increasing the reporting requirements to reinstate the federal funding. I think for people who don't agree with Trump, I think a question may be, how else would you go about this by stopping fraud from happening? And I think people who do agree with Trump, a question may be, how are we supposed to get funding to childcare facilities that do need it?
Yeah, and it's a very tight line. You know, it's very hard to give a real answer because there is such an amount of fraud that's happening. I think that you touched on something around 50%.
Yeah, so the exact fact is in 2017, the $217 million paid to child care facilities, at least 50% of it, so at least half of all of the money that was sent to Minnesota has been implicated in fraud.
Right, and I think that was a big factor in his decision to like actually cut all funding. And it's just it's a very hard thing, right? It's very hard because like at least 50%, right? You know for a fact at least half of the money that you're going to send is going to be implicated in fraud. So you have two options. You either cut funding, or you go in currently and waste more tax dollars and continue to fund, but also like go in and find the fraud.
Right.
So I think his decision was based on trying to save the tax dollars for now and go into Minnesota and find the fraud and then reinstate it, right? And whether you agree with that or disagree with that, that's up to you. But I think that's where his decision came from.
Right. I think going back to Nick Shirley's video, he visited two distinct childcare centers, which was the quality learning. How do you?
Yeah, they misspelled it. It was learning.
It was learning, but like Learn. So like Learning Center, which closed on January 6th following the investigation by Nick Shirley. The childcare facility has not yet been implicated with fraud, so that's still up for decision by...
We'll keep y'all posted on that one.
Yeah, for higher people. And then another one that he visited was the Mako Child Care Center. That had been closed since 2022, so it would make sense why there's no children in the facility.
Yeah, I think that video definitely created a lot of people's opinions on what's happening there. I don't think a lot of people went in and like actually looked at the cases that have happened and the people that have been prosecuted, and I think they just took that video and ran with it. And obviously it pushed somewhat of a false narrative with that. I think you said the Mako Center.
Yeah.
Obviously that was false. So it really just shows that people didn't want to do their own facts about it, right?
Yeah, and I think specifically the Somalian press conferences that were hold after, like this clip.
A good speaker, but I'll try my best.
Got it.
My name is Deco Noor. I'm a parent who receives federal funding for childcare for my kiddo. Over 20,000 kids will lose access to childcare programs. And that 20,000 thousands of children rely on childcare, and thousands of parents rely on childcare. Therefore, if childcare will, oh my God. I'm currently a medical student. I rely on childcare. I work. If childcare is cut, I'm unable to work or go to school. I understand fraud is bad.
I guess fraud is bad.
I guess so. I don't know.
I think that the speedy implication of these videos, as well as Nick Shirley's and the press conference, I guess, that was held, both led to critical views of the Somali community, with people now thinking that they're not very smart or that they're unintelligent or unprepared.
Yeah, and I don't think it necessarily changed people's opinion. I think it more so pushed it even more radicalized. I think that it definitely didn't change somebody that believes or aligns themselves with the left. I don't think it changed their opinion, but I think it pushed people that align themselves with the right a little more towards radicalization, right? Just from the fact of, like, how could they let this happen? Like, this is so stupid.
Yeah.
The place to start with this is I saw a video about 2 weeks ago from a man named Tyler Oliveira, or something like that. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But basically, he went around interviewing people in Little Mogadishu and tried to ask them questions about living there and their plans on assimilation and things like that. You look around this place, you can definitely see that they have changed the landscape of it and changed the culture of it. There's a lot of foreign languages and things that you wouldn't normally see in America. And basically, he went around interviewing people and asking them questions, and a lot of them couldn't answer. They didn't speak English, which is fine for like a first-generation immigrant, but they weren't even, when he would ask them, like, are you going to learn English, they'd be like, no.
Right. And You don't see this in other cultures like Chinatown or Little Italy. They have culture preservance, meaning that they hold their cultural values, yet there are things that they sacrifice to assimilate to American society.
Yeah, and just like I think that's what, to me, assimilation is, right? It's not so much coming here and completely changing the way you are, the way you were brought up, or your culture, but it's aligning yourself with American values and American goals, while keeping that.
The blending of two cultures.
Exactly, right? It's mixing, and these people basically were saying they didn't want to do any of that. They wanted to mold this place, little Meshuggah, whatever, into their own little society. And to me, that's not okay, right?
Right. America has been called the melting pot forever. I mean, specifically the 1830s, like since the beginning of the 13 colonies, it has always been the melting pot because this is where people come for prosperity and safety. And it's only been able to work because the people of America are able to work together.
Yeah, and these people basically just said that they didn't want to. And like I said, I don't believe that's okay. And he would continue to go around, and the people that did speak English basically answered his questions saying, like I said, they didn't want to assimilate and that they were going to create their own society basically inside of Minnesota. And the people that weren't Somalian that he interviewed basically were saying that they don't feel safe and that these people don't respect others and that there was stabbings and that they followed Islamic law and all these things. Whether true or not, this came from the people that lived there and saw it changed. And they also mentioned how, saddened they were by this change because like that's their home,
Right.
And I don't know, it's just very
Scary.
Yeah.
Going back to the childcare scam or fraud, whatever you may like to call it, specifically for another perspective that is extremely important in grasping the whole perspective is the Feeding Our Future program, where 135 individuals have been linked to fraud relating to food programs totaling more than 250 million.
Yeah, some like actual cases on this is there was one from a woman named Sarah Noor who was involved in the Feeding Our Futures program fraud, and she totaled fraud upwards of 5 million, as well as another woman who was white, and I think that's fair to mention. And while Somalians are the mass majority, or at least that's what we're being told, I think it's not fair to say that it's just Somalians, right? There is many cases that have been prosecuted already that were not of Somalian descent. But it's definitely important to understand that these are individual cases, right? This is not the entire Somali community, and it is not just Somali-run businesses. It's a mix of everything, right? And public sources emphasize fraud is prosecuted against specific defendants in relation to particular schemes. And that's just to say...
Do you want to expand on that a little bit? What does that mean specifically?
Yeah, I think that was the Department of Justice saying, like, we're not targeting them.
Okay.
And whether it's true or not, like, I don't have insider information on that, sorry. But that was just kind of their way of saying, look, we're doing it by individual, not race, not community. And that they found these individuals guilty.
I think another important thing to touch on is that the fact that not all Somalian childcare facilities have been implicated in sending back money or materialistic things to terrorist organizations. However, there has been links tied between the Somali community and terrorist organizations within Somalia providing material support.
Yeah, and like really and truly take that as you will, right?
But you can't make the generalization to all Somalians.
Yeah, like, and that to me is really hard, right? Because you can't generalize it because like that's wrong. It still happens. So it's how do you decipher between what's real and what's not?
How do you think we limit the materialistic funds that are being sent to foreign countries in aid of terroristic organizations?
And I think that the only way to like regulate it is, or the way it is regulated now, is through like real legal means of acquiring money. And with this fraud money, it was able to be sent to offshore accounts because it wasn't monitored by the government because they didn't know they had it, right? Or they didn't know that it was not in the banks, or that basically what I'm saying, it was acquired illegally, right? So the government doesn't know what they're doing with it.
Right. Through today, we have discussed the different community aspects of Minnesota, the monetary aspects of Minnesota, and the political aspects of Minnesota. And I want you to think, has the Somalian community been targeted, or has the Somalian community really held a majority of the fraud-linked programs?
Well, we appreciate y'all for listening. This was, like I said, the first real episode with Cash and Connie. I appreciate y'all for watching, and we'd love to hear your ideas and
thoughts and takes.
Yeah, exactly. Your responses in the comments, and yeah, peace out.
Peace out.
I long for that chill in lo-fi streets and drift away. And when my heart feels peace, you know that harmony will ease me.